When you ask the question, who is Supergirl, the first answer comes back, Superman's cousin. That's how she was introduced. That's how she existed for 40 years.
She's super and a gun. It's actually the combination that makes her a really rich character.
She wasn't as concerned as Superman was with being perfect.
The fact that she makes mistakes makes her more human.
She's very noble, she's very strong.
She's always stood for what is right, what is just, not to mention looking great while doing it.
You have all of the Kryptonian power without knowing the destiny.
Kara Zor-el, the Supergirl from Krypton. In 1959, she sprang from her purple rocket ship, surprising the Man of Steel with the extraordinary news: Superman had a cousin. A picture of innocence and youth, Kara was everything a good girl was supposed to be.
You're at a time when the American myth of the young girl is the beach bunny or the quiet little girl studying to become mom. Learn to cook, learn to clean, shut up and stay in your corner.
When you look back at like the original materials with the characters, they were very much in keeping with what the attitudes were for the time. Not quite dragging around by their hair, but very secondary and permissive.
Comic book characters kept in line with the cultural standards. And in the 1950s, even Supergirls needed a man watching over them.
She came to Earth, she was Superman's cousin, and he was very, as a product of the time, you need to train, you're not ready yet, the world's not ready for you, you're gonna hide out here until I say you're ready to go.
Superman doesn't want the world to know that Supergirl even exists, and she has to operate in secret. She's not even allowed to reveal herself as Supergirl.
She really kowtowed to Kal-El. I mean, she came in, he said, I can't reveal you to the world, go in an orphanage, put on a wig, be quiet about it, and she's like, okay. You know, just didn't even think about it. That's what she did.
Like her older cousin, Kara chose an alter ego, disguising herself as pigtailed orphan Linda Lee. Despite her amazing abilities, Kara was a girl readers could relate to.
She was created as a character that girls could identify with, also to bring some family-type feelings and less isolation for Superman.
Supergirl was very easy to relate to as a little girl.
Supergirl kind of had more of the fantasy, the girl fantasies, like here's her white horse, here's her kitty cat Streaky. So it was put in a place that, oh, this is for girls.
Boys of that era were not reading Supergirl, or they didn't particularly find her adventures exciting. And they weren't exciting. They were day-to-day kinds of things. But it was those day-to-day things that I really envied.
She became so popular that she couldn't just stay a Superman, quote, sidekick anymore. She had to become her own character.
When Superman finally did reveal his cousin Supergirl to the world 3 years after she'd been introduced in the comics, it was an incredible moment for those of us who were reading the comic, because all of a sudden Superman's secret now finally gets the glory. She physically is the strongest female on the planet, and yet she's gentle and sweet and quick to tears as any ordinary girl.
With her powers now known to the world, comic book creators and readers alike were puzzled with where Supergirl's adventure should go. Was she just Superman in a skirt? Or did she have a greater purpose yet to be realized?
One of the problems, perceptually, I think Supergirl had over the years was she was the female Superman, and who needs two?
Supergirl, to me, is a different kind of role model. For me, she's not a squeaky clean role model. Supergirl should be a reflection of a normal person, a normal girl struggling with her daily issues in the context of these superhero heroic adventures. So she's a flawed role model.
Kara's a girl. The appealing thing is that, because it gives us a chance to have her journey, to travel with her and see how she becomes the hero.
Thanks to the phenomenal popularity of the Superman movie starring Christopher Reeve, Supergirl made a splash of her own in 1984's Supergirl, the movie.
I think the Supergirl movie was a really sincere attempt to add an additional dimension to the Superman legend. The material was largely faithful to the core DC mythology.
I am Kara of Argo City, daughter of Allura and Zor-el. And and I don't scare easily.
What was the most interesting was the idea to replace strength and force with grace and something more fluid.
The Supergirl in the movie was very earnest. Helen Slater was phenomenally good. I mean, she was just stunning.
Despite a heroic effort from its star, the film ultimately failed to find an audience. Supergirl faced crushing criticism and a poor box office performance.
You've had your fun, Selena. The game is finished.
I think it was a throwback. In fact, I think that might have been the problem with why the movie didn't do as well as it could have, is because they weren't able to figure out a female heroine that would reflect what was going on in the culture.
You are absolutely right.
They didn't tell an epic story. They told a human story with a character in a costume. It was a chick flick with superpowers.
I'm sure that today it would be a whole different film. I mean, she would be much more aggressive, there would be more sexuality, she'd be much more comfortable with her identity and who she is. It would be a whole different woman, of course, and a whole different girl.
With the movie franchise dead, DC Comics officially let Kara go in the epic series Crisis on Infinite Earths.
One of the defining moments of Crisis on Infinite Earths was the death of Supergirl.
Supergirl's sacrifice brought greater meaning to her 25 years in the DC universe. To many, this was her finest hour.
When she sacrificed herself in Crisis, that was just a great moment that changed how I looked at her, from being a knockoff Superman to being her own person.
I think the moment where Supergirl dies in Crisis are thought of as very powerful and poignant icons of the period.
She was respected for the first time. She had come into her own, she had become a figure in her own right with a beginning, a middle, and an end, and that made her a kind of an epic character, where she hadn't been before. She had just been a protege.
Kara Zor-el had been erased from the DC mythology and remained absent for nearly 20 years. But in 2003, the Maid of Might returned to Earth once again.
They had to bring Supergirl back. She's too popular. She's too much in demand. People wanted to know about her story. They couldn't leave her dead.
Though still a teenager at heart, Kara reappeared in the new millennium with more girl power than ever before.
The idea was to really reintroduce Supergirl to a whole new audience. She wasn't, just comes out of that rocket and it's like, I'm gonna put the suit on, put the S-shield on, I'm a hero. No, this was a real girl, a real teenager who just happens to be able to throw trucks around, have heat vision, and a bunch of other powers.
We're playing up the fact that she's a teenager and really trying to find where she fits in and still seeing the world more in black and whites than grays. So she has very simple answers to some of the world's problems, which probably aren't gonna work, but she's gonna have to find that out the hard way.
My definition of Kara really falls into a modern girl who's suffering current problems. She's a real person with these sort of super abilities on top.